with me in the studio today. Super excited to have you here today, man. Brandon Chubb, how you doing, brother?
Good. How are you doing? I appreciate you having me, man.
Absolutely, man. I'm super glad we were able to have you in here today. Brandon came all the way from Georgia, right,
Yep,
to be here today.
Mm-hmm.
And this is something I've been super excited for. We've had some good conversations leading up to today. And honestly, I just want to jump right into it, if that's all right.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
So for those of you that don't know Brandon personally, if you haven't heard his name before, I want to get a little bit of a background. You played football at Wake Forest.
Yep. Go Deeks.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I love any opportunity I get to sit down with a football player because that's part of my life I miss really bad.
Right.
You know, I don't get to talk about this too much anymore. But more importantly, there's a lot of learning opportunities in your experience in terms of what you've done with football, the sport specifically.
100%. Yeah. Changed my whole life. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. And it's led you to who you are today, with the things you're doing today. Not only because of what you learned in the working moments of football, but also some of those shortcomings as well.
Right. I think those are my biggest learning moments, actually. My shortcomings. Mm-hmm.
And I'd actually like to start there, if you don't mind.
Yep,
Mentioned Wake Forest, had a great career there. And you ended up actually making all ACC first team linebacker.
Yep.
And for those of you who aren't football people, that's kind of a big deal. I mean, ACC is a real competitive conference. I think you've got 14 teams in the ACC, if I'm not mistaken. And you were named essentially one of the best linebackers of all those schools. That's
it was
a
honor.
Huge accomplishment.
And it was a goal I had going into my freshman year. Seeing guys like Michael Campanaro, who was a first team all ACC selection, Nikita Whitlock, guys like that were 2 or 3 years older than me, that were juniors and seniors when I came to Wake. And then going off and seeing them play in the NFL, it was just a goal of mine to accomplish that. And coming from where I came from, Hillgrove High School, my class was the second graduating class that went from freshman to senior. So it was a brand new school, second year school when I was a freshman. So we really weren't on the recruiting pipeline. We weren't on the map. A lot of people didn't notice our talent at times. And so I was kind of under-recruited. Going to Wake, it was kind of a last-minute ditch effort. They had somebody decommit. He committed to Georgia Tech last minute. They had a spot open up. I came down, committed on the spot, and then 3 days later signed my name. So it was very low expectations for me going into Wake Forest. And so for me to come out on the other side as being, one of the 3 best linebackers in the ACC in 2015 was an honor that, I hold dear to my heart, and one of my biggest accomplishments to this day, So.
Absolutely, man. I can feel the way you talk about it in that moment. Like I just can tell there's a lot of passion and a lot of pride in what you've done there.
Right.
You mentioned something though that kind of struck me. Is that something you continue to carry through in terms of who you believe is who you are in your terms of your identity? That, how do I want to phrase this? Like you have something to prove.
100%. I have a chip on my shoulder.
Yeah.
And that started literally in that process, right? Being able to go to a high school, win a lot of games, and not really get recognized for it, but see, your peers or your colleagues and people who you at least personally think you're better than, and a lot of people can validate that, get these scholarships and go on these recruiting visits and get, the red carpet treatment. And I'm at home with AA offers, which is fine, nothing against AA colleges, but I knew I was better than that, And growing up a Georgia Bulldog, my dad played for Georgia. My mom went to Georgia. In Georgia, me and my brother went to Georgia Mart Rick football camp for like 7 years, spend a night camp, didn't get one recruiting letter from him. So a lot of that, digs deep in me, and that kind of lit that fire. I remember my dad telling me going into my senior year, this is 2010. So, social media isn't as prevalent. You don't have all these outlets to see guys from cross country or nationally. And so he said, I'm gonna hire this camera guy and we're gonna send your tape out to every college that you want to go to in the South. And he said, but one caveat, like you have to be on every tackle. That's the only way this is going to work. Cause he's a hardworking man, blue collar guy. He said, if I'm gonna spend this money, like you got to promise me you'll do your end of the bargain. And so that also lit another chip in me of being able to live up to just that expectation and being able to fulfill that promise and get that goal. So yeah, it's a chip in my whole life. Even though I've overcame it and became a first team all ACC linebacker, respected as a top linebacker at Wake Forest and in the ACC in the last decade, I still have that chip on my shoulder when I went to the NFL and went undrafted. In my business life, still have that chip on my shoulder as a guy who, he's just a football player. He has no brains, like ignoring me at the table or not letting me have a seat at the table. So being able to use that and feel that in my whole life is something that's been paramount, and grateful for it, right? You, as a 15-year-old kid, you would say, no, I want all the offers. I want to be the top recruit in the country. But as a 27-year-old, it's one of the best things that's ever happened to me.
That's beautiful, man. I love that you were able to share a little bit about your relationship with your folks during that time in your life as well. And it's amazing that your father one, believed in you that much, but two, also helped you understand that this wasn't going to be a one-way street.
Right.
He was going to do this for you, but you
Mhm.
need to return the favor by
Right.
putting in the work,
Yeah.
by making the investment worth it.
And that instilled work ethic in me as well, because now I
Absolutely.
knew I had to work to be able to live up to that end of the bargain.
And I'm sure that made that offer from Wake Forest just
Yeah.
be that much more sweet,
It was
that
a
much
great
more of a
moment, yeah, for
balance.
sure.
Man, that's amazing. I love that you said that too, because you're right. I graduated right around the same time,
Mhm.
2010. Wasn't getting looked at in terms of sports in the same light, but I had, D2 offers and stuff like that
Mhm.
for lacrosse and football, and you didn't have social media really. I
Mhm.
mean, Facebook was pretty new at that point.
Right.
You had to be a little creative in how you
Mhm.
got your name out there. And it's funny because I had a similar situation where I wasn't getting offers. I kind of thought I had something
Mhm.
to prove. I
Yeah.
wanted to go play.
Mhm.
I remember I would call, really good D2 schools, like the top of the line
Mhm.
ones. I'd call their athletic department and just say, "Hey, I've been in communication with," I'd say the
Right.
coach's name, the
Yep.
recruiting coach,
Mhm.
and say, "I lost my information about your weekend visit coming
Mhm.
up.
Mhm.
Can you send me it?" And
Mhm.
whoever I was speaking to, the secretary, would just send me all the
Yeah.
information. I'd show up,
Right.
and the coaches sometimes be like, "Who the hell is this
Yeah.
kid?" Like,
Yeah.
but they go, "Well, he's here.
Right.
He's supposed
Right.
to be here."
Right.
And
That's how you
I
do
got
it. Yeah.
offers on the table
Yeah.
from doing that
That's
just
awesome.
because
Yeah.
you just had to make your own luck almost. You had to
100%.
put the work in and figure out a way to make it happen.
100%.
And I love that, man. I
Yeah.
love that. There's people in this world who are just they refuse to let the current circumstance be the result.
Mhm.
And it's those type of people that will find a way to make something happen if they
Yeah.
truly want it.
And I always think, and my parents instilled this in me during this process, and I took it throughout my whole life, is everything happens for a reason, right? So as
Yeah.
soon as you accept that reality that this is happening for a reason, then you find what that reason is, and that's how you live your life, right?
Yes.
So me not going to a Clemson or a UGA, a school that, me and my dad and my brother would go to every home game on Saturdays growing up, and them not recruit me. I mean, that happened for a reason. It took me to Wake Forest. It took me to, be able to do other things in my life that got me to this point today, which I don't think would be the same if I went to a Georgia or a Clemson or, all these other schools that I was dying to go to as a 15-year-old. So,
Absolutely. I'm a big believer in asking the question, not why is this happening to me, but what is the universe preparing me for?
right, exactly.
Why am I in this stressful
Yep,
environment? What do I need to learn
exactly.
from this? What
Mhm.
do I need to change or adapt about myself in order to be prepared for the future?
Yeah,
And just asking yourself that question, even if that's maybe not your mindset to start,
right.
makes you look at the situation
Mhm,
differently.
mhm.
And I think it's a really, really beautiful thing
And
that
I'm
some
glad
people
you said
find
that, even though it's not your mindset at the start, because it's not easy to say that to yourself and believe it,
Oh
right?
yeah.
It takes a while. It takes a lot of trial and error to realize, like, all right, like I might need to accept this principle, and then
Yeah.
move forward from there.
What I tell people because I'm a big believer in positive self-talk.
Mhm.
You got to be really aware of the words you're using when that inner voice kicks in. And when I talk to people about this, the reaction I usually get is, well, you don't believe what you're telling yourself initially. And that's absolutely true.
Mhm.
My response is always, well, in school, the first time you hear new information, you don't grasp it entirely the first time, right?
Right.
No, you go home, you study it, you do a project on it,
Right.
you write a paper on it, then you take the test
Yeah.
and you acknowledge that, okay, I
Mhm.
do know the information.
Yeah.
Positive self-talk's the same.
Uh-huh.
It feels uncomfortable at first. Saying something that you don't initially believe,
Mhm.
it doesn't feel normal. It doesn't
Mhm.
feel like you're really being completely truthful with yourself. But as you continue to do it, you continue to start being more aware of those vocabulary words you're using with yourself. And over time, you're actually building an identity around those words as well.
100%.
But yeah, it's with anything. It takes
Yeah.
time. You got to be consistent with
Yeah.
things. Man, that was an amazing opening. I love that, man. So you're at Wake Forest, you're ACC first team linebacker. And even with that recognition, you still end up going undrafted
Mhm.
in the NFL draft. But that was not the end of the story in terms of football. So walk us through what happens after that.
So go undrafted. And that process started out by, figuring out December that I was first team all ACC linebacker. And then, 2-3 weeks later, that's when combine invites were sent out.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't get a combine invite. And that's usually a precursor to getting drafted, because you're in front of all these scouts in a centralized location and they're studying everything about you. And then also I didn't get an all-star game invite. So the Senior Bowl, the East-West Shrine game, the Northwest Senior Bowl, all those games are
Mm-hmm.
another way to showcase your talent in front of other skilled individuals that are going to the next level in front of scouts and other coaches. So none of those came to me. And that was kind of where I was like, all right, well, this process is going to be tough, buckle up. I've been through this before in 2011 when I was trying to get recruited. So I'm not new to this. And that kind of helped me prepare for this mentally, right?
Yeah.
So draft day goes by, or draft day starts, and obviously I know I'm not going first round because I didn't have any of those precursors, but I'm thinking at least, there's some scout out there that's watching film that's not believing in, the hype of other teams and players, and they'll see me at little old Wake Forest who went 3-9, but was the one of the three best linebackers in a conference where they had 2 Heisman winners and 2 national champions the 3 years I started. So sit there on draft night, 3 days, name doesn't get called. And I'm sitting on the couch, 4 hours a day, just watching the TV and watching all these guys that I've, had better stats than the guys I've competed against and came out victorious as far as, comparables and stuff like that. And seeing them get picked and seeing them get their new homes in the NFL and their dreams staying alive. And so I go undrafted. LA Rams call me and my agent, say we have a spot for him. He could come out here during our mini camp, our rookie mini camp, and we'll sign him and see if he makes it through camp. If he makes it through camp, he's on the team. So I go out to LA, and it was actually a great year to be a LA Ram, just because that was the hard knock year. And
That's right.
Yeah, it was LA Rams' first time back in LA since like 1970. So it was a lot of buzz, a lot of momentum, and just a great environment as far as the team. Great players like Todd Gurley, Aaron Donald, Jared Goff was in my draft class. So a lot of household names were on that team and competed, and that put me on the practice squad at the end of camp, which led to me getting picked up by the Detroit Lions my first year and then rolling over into my second. So the dream was still alive, still got to be able to play NFL football, just not the conventional route or the easy route, right? Didn't get the signing bonus, didn't get all that. So,
but I would absolutely be willing to bet that if your experience transitioning from high school into college would have been different, for example, if you would have had an easier path,
yeah,
I imagine the transition from college to NFL would have taken a different path as well.
For sure.
Because you told yourself, hey, I'm familiar with this. This is uncomfortable, but I'm familiar with the discomfort. I've been here before. I've proved myself that I can do this before. And that's discipline at its most fundamental form is proving to yourself that you're capable of doing difficult shit. Like I'm a big believer and I jump in the shower and I turn it on cold. First thing.
Yeah.
It always sucks, but you start the day off telling yourself, I'm capable of doing difficult shit. So now when other things come up, when those tough meetings, tough conversations, those tasks that we don't want to do, you've already reaffirmed from the morning on that you are capable of this. And that's what you did for yourself.
Right.
You looked back and said, I've been in this position before. I've been overlooked. I know what I'm capable of. And I know there's a spot for me on a team. And you didn't let that put a ceiling on you for yourself.
Right.
That's amazing.
It was big.
Man.
Yeah. You're not, I wasn't a stranger to it. Right. So I had a callus built up, and you mentioned, being comfortable, being uncomfortable. And I think that's a big thing. That's paramount in my life as well. Is I'm in a lot of situations where it's not comfortable to be there, but the fact that I can sit and embrace those situations, like we talked about earlier, accepting that everything happens for a reason, embracing those uncomfortable situations, knowing that this will only make me stronger. This will only make me better in another area, right? I could have easily put my head down in high school, cried myself to sleep every night and just said, the world's not fair. Fuck this. I don't want to do this. This is, not fair, blah, blah, blah. But what I did is played every game of my senior year as hard as I could. Told my dad, like we had our conversation, I was on every tackle or at least involved in the play somehow, just making sure I could control what I could control, right?
Right.
And at the end of the day, if it didn't work out, I was still at peace with that and still knowing that I did the best I can and there's something else out there for me, right? So
yeah, man, this already ties in so well with a conversation that our producer Alex and I were having literally as we're setting up today. Is that we unfortunately we're moving into a world, and we even live in a world right now in some ways where we're trying to avoid stress. We have resources that help us avoid stress, whether it's our phone or other things like that. We have medication that literally reduce stress and anxiety. We have antidepressants, all these things. But man, there's power in those emotions. I firmly believe that emotions are signals to be motivators. What is hunger? Hunger is stress. It's your body telling you, we need food. You need to go out and find something.
Right.
Even if you're looking at a very primitive form of human, there was comfort in the cave or shelter. But guess what? Hunger set in and said, hey, it's dangerous out there, but this stress needs to be a motivator for you to go out, face the danger, and go find food.
Yeah.
And obviously, we live in a different world. We're not forced to leave our caves anymore. We can have someone bring food to us. But the reality of it is we've created this culture or this conditioning that stress is bad. Anxiety is bad. We should avoid it. we should take supplements or even medications to kind of quiet those feelings. And not gonna lie, man, I kind of hate it. I
Mhm.
kind of hate that that's what we've built around these emotions because they're there for a reason.
Mhm.
That's our brain telling us like we need to change something about our internal external environment
Yeah.
in order to continue adapting, evolving, thriving.
Right.
And uh, I think you even understand that a little bit. I mean, you said it yourself, you're getting comfortable in the
Yeah.
uncomfortable. You
Mhm.
know that the stress is a purpose. You know that having more challenging path
Mhm.
is beneficial.
Yeah, you got to go through shit, man. Like it's these people you know in your life, and everybody has this person or people that they just don't get it, right?
Yeah.
Whether it is they just don't get it, something about them they just don't get it. Whether it's business, whether it's relationships, whether it's being a friend, whether it's being whatever it may be, they just don't get it. And I attribute that to a lot of people not going through shit and actually handling it themselves, right? So then they go to certain things like you said, instead of taking that on, saying, "All right, I'm here. Let me see what this is telling me, what this can teach me, and how I can learn and get
Hmm.
better from this," right? And that's why I said I love being uncomfortable or comfortable in uncomfortable situations because I know one, I'm gonna get better from this somehow, and it's gonna help me some way or some shape in my life later on down the road. I'm gonna learn something from this, and also like it's gonna tell me about myself or my circumstance that I either adapt from, change, or embrace. Right. So you gotta, I hate to say you gotta go through shit.
You do.
You got to,
You do.
you got to, and obviously it's people who are going through a lot of shit, and some things is uncontrollable, but you just gotta go through the mud. I like to say it, and take a shower,
Yeah.
and you'll see where the spots are still left over and how to fix those or how to clean them up.
And I think what people struggle with the most in terms of that, because you said it yourself, we all have people in our life or a person in our life that kind of refuses to accept that in terms of what's needed in order to move forward.
Hmm.
And I think it's that people want meaning right away. They
Hmm.
want immediate gratification. They want to know that this stress is going to benefit them.
Right.
Why? That's not the way it works.
Hmm.
Oftentimes, as you said, it's not until a year, 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the road that we're able to reflect on it and go, oh, that's
Hmm.
why I was in that moment. I
Right.
had to learn this, which helped me with this now.
Hmm.
Like it's never going to be you learn it the next day, you learn it the next week, and you learn it the next month. It's going to be down the road that you understand that the stress served a purpose. But if you're at least able to enter the stressful moment, enter the anxiety with that intention of growth, with the intention of adaptation,
Hmm.
then it allows you to put that forward in front of the other a little bit easier. It prevents that hesitation,
Right.
and I think that's where people get stuck. They want to. It's like they know they
Yeah.
want to do it, but they're not able to identify the benefit,
Hmm.
so they decide to freeze or turn around
Right.
or
Right. And that
just avoid it.
instantaneous gratification, I think, social media complements that as well.
It does.
It really boosts that, and then it gets people in this mindset that if it doesn't happen now, if it doesn't show tangible results, if it doesn't get me feedback, then
Hmm.
it's instantaneously, then serves no purpose to me, right?
Yep.
And like you said, you got to be able to go through it, and then you'll realize, you'll have that moment in your life where you're not even trying to think about it, and bam, oh, I did this, 2 years ago. This is why this made me this, and
Hmm.
you'll start putting the pieces of the puzzle together, and then that's when you can really accept it, and that really helps. That's why I'm talking earlier. I said it's not easy to accept it, right? It's not easy to know that everything happens for a reason, or just to control what you can control when bad shit's happening or
Hmm.
unfortunate shit's happening. But once you get that one piece of feedback or that epiphany, then it's easy. And now it's and that happened for me, right? In high school, I was like, I don't know why this is happening to me, but then college, graduate, don't get drafted, and I'm like, bam, that's exactly what happened.
Right.
Now as a 22-year-old, I can handle this like a 30-year-old instead of like a 17-year-old, right?
Hmm.
And shape my life and go and use this to the best of my ability, take advantage of the situation and exploit it.
Yeah. Absolutely. And you already kind of preluded this a little bit in terms of what you just mentioned. So you're in the NFL, you're picked up by the Detroit Lions, made a great impression with the Detroit Lions coaching
Yep.
staff as well.
Hmm.
And a little bit of adversity came back again at this point in time. What happened there?
Yeah. So going into my second year, so I mentioned I was on the Rams practice squad my rookie year, and then Detroit picked me up from the Rams practice squad. So the rest of my rookie year, I was on Detroit, and made a great impression. So going into year two of my NFL career, that rookie mini camp and that mini camp, and that off season workout and training and stuff
Mhm.
like that, OTAs, I was doing pretty well. And then first practice of mini camp, tore my ACL, and that was something new for me as well because I never was injured in my life. As
Really?
far as like missing time or having surgery. So it was one of those things that was very traumatic for me. Right, being able to slow down and actually have to accept what's going on. Right, I can't work out through it. I can't
Mhm.
just lift weights through it or just be physical and do other things to kind of distract me from it. I had to sit there on a bed and accept it. Like, I can't, run for 7 months. I can't jump for a year. I can't play football. I can't work out. I can't, what I'm saying? So I had to
Mhm.
really learn more about myself and internalize it all and kind of handle it internally. Right. So it was one of those moments that really opened my eyes to just life outside of football because it was the first time in my life where you couldn't tell me my talents would stop me from playing football. Because at
Mhm.
this time, talents don't matter if you don't have a ACL,
Right.
and that takes nine months at the earliest to grow back. And so I kind of saw the light at the end of the tunnel for the first time. That hey, like if it was all to stop today, if you were never able to come back to the Brandon Chubb pre-surgery, like what would you do?
Mhm.
And so that's when I realized like I gotta work on me when I don't have a helmet on. And so I started doing internships. I started, working with the NFLPA on workshops and stuff like that to help develop my resume or my LinkedIn or my alumni network from college or professionals who are in the spaces that I'm interested in or mentors or just internships to get experience and know what I do and don't like, right? And so that happened year 2 because I was out the whole season, so I was able to come home in Atlanta and just do that. And then got healed back up. But yeah, ACL, I mean, that was a turning point in my life. Like I said, it was one of the most traumatic things that's ever happened to me. But it's the moment I learned the most about myself, right? And it goes back to the high school and then going undrafted. All those work in uh, order with each other to build me up for this moment as well, to handle it the way I did, and
With
to
not to interrupt you, but with that in mind, was there any piece of this event that was more difficult to overcome than some of the other adversity that you've faced just because you were now in a position where it wasn't I can find a way to make this work and
Mhm.
I can find a way to make that next step because you were literally at a point where like okay, I can't take my next step in
Mhm.
football for the
Right.
next 9, 10 months. And you had to have that, as you mentioned, that transition in mentality.
Mhm.
I need to work on myself outside of football.
Mhm.
Was there a moment that was more difficult to make that transition?
100%. So just because one, you said it was the first time in my life I was physically vulnerable.
Hmm.
I've been emotionally vulnerable and been mentally vulnerable through the two earlier instances, but I've never been physically vulnerable. So I had all three of those vulnerabilities exposed at one time, and then I also had the acceptance of reality. Right, a lot of people, especially at 22, and it's social proof. Right, you see your peers do one thing and you want to do it, or you want to be on the same path as them, or the kind of going at the same speed limit as them. But this was one of those things where I had to take a step back and realize like this is a pause. So this pause, I could either it's just like COVID and the pandemic. Like we could either, sit on our ass and work from home and complain and bitch and do whatever, or we can find a way to make it out of this better, stronger, and more self sufficient. So it was one of those things where I was vulnerable at the highest pretense, and also I just couldn't accept reality at 22 years old, but I had to. It forced me to grow up faster as well. So that was one of the or two of the reasons why this was, one of the hardest reasons to transition, right?
Hmm.
And to really accept it and to really expose myself because being vulnerable is saying, "Hey, I need help. Hey, um, I want to, shadow you on your job training. Hey, I want to see what kind of resources the NFLPA has to offer because I might not be able to be in this system for a long enough time to benefit it when I'm ready to transition on my own." So, just opening my eyes up to all that and really just maturing right
Absolutely.
before my eyes.
So, what of all those things you were doing in that time, making all these new connections, working in all these different areas of your life, was there one thing of that time that stuck out to you specifically in terms of a person you met or experience you had that almost turned on a light for you and said, "Oh, there's something here. Something about me connects to this." Was there something specifically?
Yeah, so I think the NFLPA, they had this program called the PAIR program. So it was for guys on injured reserve, and what they did was uh, once every month for 3 months, they flew you out to DC, the headquarters, and they had like a 3-day workshop of people coming in to speak, networking events. They would have LinkedIn come in to help you curate your LinkedIn profile. They would have somebody from some career builder resource, and he would help you curate your and cultivate your resume appropriately. They had people who had resources to let you know what internships were available in the off season. And I think me just taking advantage of that and realizing that, hey, not only am I good at this as far as my personality, being able to utilize and take advantage of these networks and these people I meet to kind of use that to my advantage uh, professionally, but also that I can add value in other people's life uh, throughout other means besides football, right? Because my whole life I was adding value through other people by performing on Saturday or Sunday and them getting tickets or them being able to associate themselves with a football player, them being able to, take pictures with me or talk stories at Thanksgiving dinner about what's it like, or I love that game you played. And that was the way I was able to create value for 22 years of my life. And now I realize that doesn't have to be the only way. And I'm good at being able to create value for other people in other ways, whether that's professionally throughout connections or just being a colleague, a mentor. That's why I started the foundation at the same time. It led to us starting the Chubb Foundation that
Mhm.
October, just because I realized that I can create value, but I also have a skill set that allows me to thrive in a professional setting in a
Yeah.
business mind. It was really when I found my business mind. I was an econ major at Wake Forest, but I never really thought I would be an entrepreneur. I thought I'd be somebody who hopefully one day would be the CEO of Chick-fil-A or Coca-Cola in Atlanta, but never somebody who would go out on his own and start his own nonprofit, right? And raise thousands of dollars annually, or go out on his own and uh, start his own venture capital firm and ask, high net worth individuals and people who are superior financially for money and
Mhm.
ask them to trust me. And so it led to a lot of things, but I think that was the biggest, just that program, because it gave me confidence and let me know I could do this.
Yeah, you said something there that I actually haven't heard someone say in that way yet. Because as you can imagine, a lot of the guests that come on a show like this, they've attached meaning to helping others, living in the service of others. You kind of said that, but you verbalized it much differently, and I actually really, really
Hmm.
kind of found myself attaching to it, which was bring value to others.
Hmm.
I really like that because whether this is what you meant or not, I think people tend to identify the want or need to help others in terms of I have value and I'm going to use it to help you.
Hmm.
But just by again, in the being aware of the verbs we use, um, you want to bring value to others. You want to bring their value up,
Hmm.
identify their valuables,
Yeah.
and that's really powerful because
Yeah.
it almost takes away the or it's not takes away, it actually adds the independence to the person on the receiving
Hmm.
end as well, which is unbelievably important. I think everybody in some way, shape, or form kind of struggles in identifying purpose and
Yeah.
identifying, what they're doing here, what allows them to feel fulfilled.
Hmm.
And it ties into what we view as valuable in terms of ourselves. So
Hmm.
I just wanted to mention that. I
Yeah.
really, really love the way you verbalized that.
And it's
Um,
funny you brought that up, because the mission of the Chubb Foundation is to activate human potential. So it's not saying, "Hey, I'm gonna give you X, Y, and Z, and this is how you're going to live your life."
mhm,
It's saying, "Hey, you have something inside of you that just from circumstantial or structural reasons hasn't been brought out of you, and I'm gonna give resources and opportunities to you to help you exploit, find, and use that potential inside you." Right. So that's through somebody as simple as me or Bradley going to our chess club, and these kids realizing that he plays in Denver, but he's here in Atlanta in our after school program on a Tuesday. And that makes me want to work harder for Bradley, because I know he's putting a lot of,
yeah.
effort, energy, and resources into me. And so, and I'm saying that as if I'm one of the kids. So it makes them want to work harder and really bring out that potential, or other ways we do it. So yeah, just be able to bring value to others is, paramount,
Yeah.
at least in my walk of
We're taking a
life.
short break from our episode to inform you that season 1 of the Failing Forward podcast is brought to you by Atlas Nutrition. Guys, Atlas Nutrition is a brand that I've known for really since they started. But more importantly, I've known the people that started this company since I was a little kid. These are people dedicated to helping you reach your overall health and fitness goals. They're a team of experts who have been committed to helping others for their entire life. Regardless of what you have in mind for your health and fitness, they absolutely have a coach and a program fit for you. They offer personalized plans offering everything from weight loss, body transformation, digestive health, corrective nutrition, performance nutrition, and even contest prep. And I myself am absolutely someone who would testify to what they're able to do. Just a little over a month ago, I contacted one of their senior coaches, Lauren, to tell her that I was actually experiencing some inflammation in my digestive system. Actually, to be quite honest, I didn't know that's what I was experiencing, but Lauren helped me identify that. Not only did she make changes to my meal plan to help bring in some foods that wouldn't upset my digestive system as much as things were, but she also wrote me a brand new nutrition protocol in terms of supplementation. And I kid you not, guys, I'm still on the recommendations she gave for me over a month ago, but I was feeling better in 24 hours. That is not an ad, guys. That is me telling you that I've had really, really excellent experiences with everyone I've come in contact with from this organization. Regardless of what you hope to achieve in terms of your health and fitness, they will have the right coach and the right program for you. And to be honest, I just couldn't be more excited and more pumped up to be a partner with Atlas Nutrition for the season sponsorship. And the reason is because they uphold the failing forward mentality. Whether it's to the coaches they employ or the clients they support, they prioritize the importance of properly feeding the mind, body, and soul. And we talk about that all the time on this program, guys. It's not just about what you're doing physically, the information you're reading, the podcast you're listening to. You have to really attack it from all sides. It's about everything you absorb. They understand that growth and development comes from more than just nutrition. It's what you're feeding your mind, your body, and your soul. If you're searching for accountability, education, and guidance in pursuit of improving your physical health, I would absolutely recommend contacting their team. You can reach them at atlasnutritionllc.com or visit them on Instagram at atlasnutritionofficial. Remember, tell them Jared from Failing Forward sent you. Guys, if you're ready to take your physical health and fitness and make it your number one priority, then they're ready to make you theirs. Reach Atlas Nutrition today, guys. I promise you won't regret it. Because you went there already, and it is something I want to talk about. Would you mind sharing kind of the premise of the Chubb Foundation, what you guys hope to achieve?
Yeah, so we hope to achieve a lot of things, but our main thing, like I said, our mission is to activate human potential. And so we do that through three foundational pillars: health and wellness, mentoring, and education. And so how I see it is how we see it is, to much is given, much is required. And we came from a background where, parents weren't rich by any means, but we never struggled. We had opportunities and we had great parents as far as mentoring wise to put these opportunities in place for us and allow us to achieve them. Because a lot of people have opportunities, but they might have bad guidance. They may have bad people in their ear. So they miss that opportunity. And then some people are just in situations where they might not have those same opportunities because of financial reasons, because of household reasons, because of behavioral, mental reasons, whatever it may be. So we want to give resources, like I said, to be able to bring that value out of everybody who has it, right? Because everybody has value some way, somehow. And we want you to internally find that, but we're going to help, I guess, be a propellant to that. And if you want to, you do it, bam, you can get something out of it. If you don't, can't make a kid, sit there and say, I want to be an entrepreneur just because you sat in an entrepreneur program for 7 weeks.
Right.
It has to be in them or her. And you can't make a kid want to be a mentor just because they've been in a mentoring program for two years, right? It has to be in them. But being able to allow them to find themselves and find what's in them that they love, what they enjoy, and how they can help others and be a light on other people as well, I think is important.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, not only that, as you mentioned, you're not trying to pigeonhole a child. You're not trying to put them in a box that you're creating, but you are at the very least exposing them to an opportunity and experience that does allow them to create or find some valuable or gift within themselves.
Right.
And you do that by trying things you don't necessarily connect with.
Right.
I think people do kind of get discouraged by that. Is they try something, it doesn't feel right, it doesn't work out, and it's okay, well, I'm going to go back to what I was doing before. Yeah. It's like, just because it didn't work out, that's just, all right, cross that off the list. What was there something about that you did like, that you were attracted to? Right. You have to continue to ask these questions and identify these areas in order to, again, work through the list of life, so to speak. But I think it's really, really great that you guys you're creating and presenting the opportunities. Yeah. You're giving them something outside of what they would traditionally be exposed to just through school or local sports, things like that. Because hell, even kids that have, maybe more opportunities than others, they're not experiencing stuff like that on a regular basis.
School's not teaching entrepreneurship, right?
No.
And like you mentioned, even if I didn't like something, your first resort shouldn't just be to go back to what I know. It should be, why didn't I like that? And it might be something in that told me, even though I don't like this, I'm gonna like this, right? And then let me try that out, and then I could get something from that. You know what I'm saying? So it's a lot of opportunities out there for you to find yourself and find what you love just by
Yeah.
exposing yourself to stuff you're not every day doing.
Well, not only that, but if you didn't like something, great. Now there's an opportunity for you
Right.
to change it.
Right.
If you don't like it, there's other people
Right.
don't like it.
Right.
There's opportunity for you to do something in that,
Right.
to be a problem solver
Right.
and create something new that
Mhm.
other people like you will be able to connect with.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's awesome. I love following along what you guys have done so far. It's always just e- it's hard to feel like emotion and energy in a picture,
Mhm.
but I swear it feels like everything you guys post in terms of the events you guys going on and the schools you guys have been involved with. You can feel that. You can
Yeah.
feel
No, I
just what's
appreciate
going
that.
on in
Yeah.
those
And I
places.
appreciate your support as well. Speaking of that, just through our whole journey, you've been able to spread the word of our initiatives and our impact. So I appreciate that as
Of
well.
course, man. Happy to. Yeah, I would honestly love to be involved in some
Mhm.
way if I could in the future because I think what you guys are doing is really amazing.
No, I appreciate it.
So in that light, is there something specifically in you in terms of your personality that brought you to working with children, or was it? I guess what I'm asking is what came first. Was it the passion to bring value out in people, or was it something to do with working with younger kids first?
What came first? That's a great question. I never thought about
Because you
that,
got to
but
be
yeah.
someone special to work with
Yeah.
young kids. My wife's a preschool
Mhm.
teacher. I've been in that room.
Yeah.
I wouldn't
Yeah,
last a day.
right, yeah.
It takes an amazing person, a
Mhm.
very patient person, a very understanding person. So I'm just curious if there was something that drew you to you working with young children more than anything
No, that's
else.
a great question. I think it started, or not think, I know it started for me personally, volunteering at Wake Forest. My senior year, I volunteered with the organization called HOPE,
Hmm.
stands for Help Our People Eat. And so Winston-Salem per capita is one of the driest food deserts in the nation, or in the country, yeah, in the nation. So being able to impact that with children who Friday or Saturday, Sunday don't get meals because they're not in school, they don't get that cafeteria money,
Right.
and or that free lunch or whatever it may be. And so what this organization did was they took a food truck with prepackaged like sandwiches, milk, apples, healthy stuff,
Hmm.
and they drove around these community centers in these neighborhoods on Sunday and just passed out meals to these kids so they can have these lunches when they aren't getting that free lunch from their Monday through Friday school. And so being able to see the smile on these kids' faces, they're chasing this green food truck with veggie tail like characters, so like a celery, tomato with cartoon characters on the side, like it's an ice cream truck,
Yeah.
and being excited to get a carton of milk, a ham sandwich, and some celery sticks, right? And so that really opened my eyes to being able to want to have that same impact on children, right? Seeing that smile, just seeing that, it brought the kid out of me, and knowing that, hey, I never had to do this, but I can't imagine the kids like them who I'm seeing the houses they live in and the neighborhoods they're living in, and the clothes they're wearing and how they smell when they're coming around us, and knowing that this isn't right. It could be better for these kids. And these kids can't pay a bill. They can't
Right.
work a 9 to 5 to help their family out at age 10 or 5. And so that kind of brought my passion for children. And then also I already had that gift of wanting to bring value to others. And I think, so to answer your question, I think bringing value came first, and then working with Hope and volunteering on Sundays brought the
Sure.
youth involved,
Kinda
right?
introduced
And
it
then
to
you
you.
just realizing your wife can attest to this as well. Is just they're more moldable, right? If I'm 18, I'm not taking as much of my life through a program as I am if I'm 10, right? I can change the career arc a little bit more if I'm a 10-year-old or I'm a 15-year-old, because I haven't really, just like Play-Doh or
Yeah.
concrete, it hasn't dried out all the way, right? It's
Hmm.
still able to shape shift. And so having youth being involved in that, I think is where we can make the most impact as well.
Yeah. That's actually a topic I've really enjoyed like reading about and listening to podcasts on as well is like neuroplasticity, or the ability to learn or
Mhm.
change our minds in terms of
Mhm.
our personality. And obviously, as most people probably know this, it's easier to understand something new or allow our personality or who we are as a person to be changed as a young
Right.
child versus
Mhm.
when we're adult. It's been proven obviously that we can
Right.
continue to learn, we
Right.
can continue to change
Yep.
ourselves. It's just that a lot of us don't choose to
Mhm. Right.
once we hit a certain point.
Right.
But I don't know what about it specifically that makes me so intrigued about like a younger child's mind in terms of their
Mhm.
ability to learn. But I talk about this all the time with my wife. Um, and the thing that I always come back to is there seems to be an enormous amount of importance around teaching children to problem solve,
Mhm.
like putting them in a situation hypothetically where they are the one making the call,
Yeah.
and let them just walk through that process. And obviously, as a very young kid, a kid might say something kind
Mhm.
of illogical,
Mhm.
but it's the point of putting them that in that mental environment and
Mhm.
allowing them to create a solution.
Yeah.
Because, and from my perspective, I understand that because as a young kid, you're experiencing all these new things on a daily basis, and basically everything coming in is just being perceived as normal,
Mhm.
regardless of what it is. That's why kids are commonly referred to as so resilient. It's
Mhm.
because it doesn't seem out of the nature of things. You know, as an
Right.
adult, you have a long list of experiences. So when something out of the normal happens, it does kind of shock us,
Yeah.
or make us pause and think about it. But for a kid, it's always normal, so to
Mhm.
speak. So putting them in a scenario to create something that's not necessarily normal to them
Mhm.
has the ability to just really open up their mind in terms of how they develop moving forward. And whether it was intentional or not, I feel like you guys are almost doing that in a way
Mhm.
through the Chubb
Mhm.
Foundation. You're introducing them to things like entrepreneurship. You're kind of putting questions and
Mhm.
hypothetical scenarios in front of them as individuals, as group and as
Mhm.
groups, where they're working through a problem.
Right.
And they're identifying it together. Um, I think that's really, really
Yeah.
amazing because everything I've learned about this is that that's exactly
Yeah.
what they need. It's not just this is the way it is.
Right.
It's this is the way it has been done.
Yeah.
What would you do differently?
And
How
it's
would you?
and it's funny you mentioned that because this year we just started our chess program. And so chess, a lot of people don't know this, but there's so many benefits in chess, right? You have to problem solve. It makes you think ahead. So you're
Mhm.
thinking 5 or 10 moves ahead. You are like I said, problem solving. You're dealing with defeat or conquering, right? Because you conquer pieces. And also it improves test scores, improves
Oh, yeah.
reading, it does all these things for kids. And so we're like, these great benefits, why do we not do this for 10-year-olds? Why do we
Yeah.
not do this for middle school year-olds or middle schoolers? So we did that, started that this year. And that's one of our annual programs now because it really allows these kids to think for themselves, kind of have the competition edge to it as well. So now you work for something and you get the reward or the benefits from it. And if you lose, you learn how to lose and learn
Yes.
from your loss, right?
Right.
And so the chess master or the chess coach always says, win or learn. He never says it's a
Yeah.
loss. So if you lose a chess game, it's not a loss. You just learned.
Yep.
You win a chess game, you won, but it was win or learning. So for these kids, that's paramount because one, they're not exposed to that if you're not playing sports. And two, they're not um, really being challenged that like that through curriculums, right? Curriculums are set out to, and there's nothing wrong with it, but they're set out to kind of guide you and push you through and progress to a certain goal. Like you're saying, you study for it, you read a book, study for a test, and then you take the test.
Mhm.
Whereas I'm just gonna give you the test, and you might not know any of the answers, but at least you'll problem solve or figure out why this might be the answer, why this might make sense
Right.
based off of my previous knowledge and what I've learned in the past, right? So being able to do that as well, to your point with that chess club is something we started and we
That's
love
awesome.
doing for those kids.
That's so cool. Um, Man, I would imagine that playing chess regularly, or at least learning the ins and outs of chess at a young age, probably I would think, again, I'm not a neurologist, but I would think that would probably help instill the growth mindset
Mhm.
in,
It
in a
develops
child.
dendrites.
Yeah. Well,
So
because you're learning two things in
yeah,
chess. You're delaying gratification. You're learning to delay gratification because in chess,
yep,
you have to kind of sacrifice
yep,
some resources
mhm,
for the long term goal.
yep.
And in chess, it can be a long
Long
term
term,
goal.
yep.
It's not a short game. But two, you're also attaching meaning to the stress or the workload,
Yep,
the work process.
mhm,
Um, you're learning through the process. Oh, that move didn't work out, so I learned from it, and now I can make another move that I now know how to make. So, and that's what has been identified as um, people who do have the growth mindset. It's not
mhm,
their personality. It's not who they are as an
mhm,
individual. It's the ability to delay gratification
mhm.
and the ability to attach meaning to work, not the achievement. And that's the game of chess in my mind. Um, which I've
Yeah,
literally just had that realization
yeah.
while you were telling me about that.
That's
But
awesome.
like that's so cool.
Yeah, yeah,
God, that's awesome.
yeah.
Are you guys gonna do a Colorado chess
Yeah, so we're
event at all?
actually I was just talking on the way here with Big Brothers Big Sisters. It's another program manager who's an alum of Wake Forest, Lance Holly, and so talking to him about being able to instill some of these initiatives that we're doing in Atlanta into the Denver community and really spreading and getting our outreach as big as possible, right?
Mhm.
Because it's proof of concept. We've done it twice in Atlanta now, so we know we're a well-oiled machine. We know how this works. We know how the kids respond. We know what works best, what doesn't. Then now it's time to really get that outreach and bring it to the Denver community and the Boys and Girls Club, Bit Brothers, Bit Sisters, and other organizations, United Way. So
Yeah.
being able to expand that and really just have more feet on the ground.
Mhm.
So
That's awesome. I'm so excited for that,
yeah,
man.
no, I
Yeah.
appreciate it.
I'm really, really enjoying just learning more about that foundation as a
Yeah.
whole, learning about you and what brought you
Hmm.
to this endeavor
Yeah.
specifically, because I think that tells everyone more about who you are as an
Hmm.
individual than anything else. Not to say
Yeah.
the adversity you've experienced
Right.
in your football career or even prior is insignificant. 'Cause it's absolutely not. 'Cause that
Right.
was a huge factor in who you are as well. But man, you can really feel who you are when you talk about this
No, I
program
appreciate
and what you
it.
do for kids. That's
Yeah.
awesome, man. Um, so, aside from the Chubb Foundation, you've also jumped into a couple of other ventures as well. One of which I do want to talk about because this is actually the first time I've gotten to sit across from another host.
Yeah.
But you started a podcast as
Yep.
well, and we
Hmm.
were talking about that a little bit before we started recording today.
Hmm.
Would you mind sharing just a little overview
Yeah.
of that? Because I'm sure my listeners might want to cross over, see what you guys talk about over there too.
Right. So, and it's probably like you, right? I was a big podcast guy. I was a guy who on the on the commutes to wherever I was going, I was listening to podcasts. If I was at home, I was putting on podcasts instead of Netflix. It was
Yep.
just one of those things where I just wanted to learn and what better way to do it while being able to multitask, right? I don't have
Hmm.
to pay attention to the screen. I can listen to it audio wise. So I started this podcast because one thing I realized is I listen to a lot of sports podcasts, and then I listen to a lot of business podcasts, like a Freakonomics or you know, uh, can't think of them off the top of my head. Or then so I wanted to bridge the gap because I'm in both realms, right? I'm in
Yeah.
the sports, but I also have a lot of connections that are beneficial for this podcast to work, which is people who are successful in their business careers but might not be talked about, right?
Sure.
So you take the CEO of Harlem Children's Zone in Harlem, and he just succeeded Jeffrey Canada, who was a top 100 CEO for the past 2 decades, and he's a 2 or 3 Harvard degree guy, right? So he
Oh
has like
wow.
3 degrees from Harvard, and he's maybe under 30, right? So being able to put him on the
I'm sorry. He
podcast,
has 3 degrees from Harvard. And he's
yes,
under 30.
under 30, which
As
is
you start describing it,
yeah,
I'm picturing like a dude in like his
right,
50s.
right.
Okay, wow. So he's
Kwame
an
Owusu
achiever.
Kessie, that's his name, and so yeah, so being able to put him on a platform where I can use sports principles to highlight what he's doing in his
Yeah.
everyday life and kind of bridge that gap. And so that's all my guests are is people who like yourself might have a podcast, and people don't know that this is something that's really really worth highlighting as well. It's just like hitting a home run. It's just like
Yeah.
slam dunking a basketball. It's just like scoring a touchdown. But being able to put it on a platform where it makes sense for both listeners, right?
Yeah.
So you don't have just strictly suits and ties on your audience group, or you don't strictly just have jocks as well or fans. You have a hybrid of those. So that's the Highlight Podcast. Like I mentioned to you earlier, this time last year, we launched our first season. It was 10 episodes, and COVID kind of messed up the business model this year because I want to have these face-to-face interactions,
Hmm.
and that kind of slowed down our travel. But hoping to release another season of 10 episodes in the next couple months or so. But
That's
yeah,
awesome,
so it was
man.
one of those things where I was just sitting around, and I was like, I mean, I love podcasts, and I was low key, talking to myself at one point, like I was a podcast host, and I was like, well, let me just record this, right? And
Yeah.
let me just put pen and paper and really get this popping.
That's awesome, man. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's very, very similar to how we got things going as well. And that's something I think that a lot of people don't quite notice unless you've actually sat down and spent time thinking about hosting one yourself. But it's taking information that you view as beneficial and translating it to the
Yeah.
point where anyone can understand it.
Mhm.
And that's a big glass of water.
Mhm.
It really is because there is an insurmountable amount of information in the world. We can Google literally anything now,
Mhm.
but people do choose to listen to it being verbalized
Right.
because there's now a connection between you and the information.
Mhm.
It's a little bit more difficult for us to read something and immediately create a real life connection to us personally.
Mhm.
But I think there's a lot of powerful impact coming from somebody else essentially teaching it to
Yeah.
you. And I don't like the way I verbalize that because I don't view myself as a teacher or anything in this light. But I love coming across information that as soon as I absorb it, I know, oh my God, I can't wait to
Yeah.
like find the episode where
Right.
this is going to fit
Right.
because it impacted me and I know it can impact others.
Mhm.
But it's been such an interesting process being on this side because I was like, I love listening to
Mhm.
podcasts. I was really, really enthused with them. But it's funny, I bet you do this too. Now that you listen to podcasts, you pay attention to different things, right?
Mhm.
It's not always about
Yeah.
what the guest is
Right,
saying.
right.
It's, well, what is it? What's his intro sound like? How is he grabbing my
Right,
attention so
right.
quickly? What kind of questions is he
Right.
asking? How are they being worded?
Mhm.
So it's funny how your perspective
Yeah,
changes
for
when
sure.
you put yourself on the other side of it.
Even I get a little ahead of myself and I start judging guests or judging hosts as well too. Like, you
Oh,
could have
sure.
asked this better. You could have
Right.
asked this,
That's not how I would have done that. Yeah. Right.
He should have followed up on this question, or he shouldn't have talked that much when he was answering it. And so, yeah, it's been a great experience. I always think of my podcast, at least for my listeners, I kind of want them to listen to it like as if they were on the other line of the phone, right? So if I can, as a young professional, get Harlem Children's Zone CEO on the phone, what would I say to him? What would I ask him? How would I learn from him to,
Sure.
And so I think about that when I interview my guests is if my listeners were able to talk to Eric Burkhart, the CEO of Select Sports Agency, and has Johnny Manziel, Kyler Murray, Bradley Chubb as his agents, Patrick Mahomes, how would I, as a listener, want to ask questions on that phone call to learn stuff that could benefit my life? Whether I'm a featured agent, whether I'm a lawyer, whether I'm a Wall Street guy, and so being able to, because everybody's not going to pick up the phone for you, right? So being able to use my connections to pick up the phone literally on the podcast and have my listeners have that kind of like phone call moment. I think that's the most I learned from podcasts. When I listen to business podcasts, I'm thinking from the chair of, man, if I was able to get this guy on a code email and to schedule a call, what would I ask and what would I learn from it, to help myself?
That's a unique perspective. I mean, that's something I'm going to take away from today, honestly, because that allows me to kind of look at things a little bit differently as well. No, I'm super excited for it, man. Super excited for second season to get rolling when things clear up a little bit. I'm like you. I like the in-person thing. I think it offers a little bit different level of quality.
Right.
But man, I'm an energy person, man. Like when you're in person, you feel the energy. You can feel the passion in which people talk about. And I think you lose that over the phone or over like video calls and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But hopefully we can continue rolling with this as well and kind of see where it takes us. I think Failing Forward and the Highlight podcast are going to have to do a round 2 at some point down the road. See what's changed.
I mean, you described the podcast to me, but listening to the clips you posted of PJ and other guests, I was excited just to come on this because it's something that one, I knew could add a lot of value to other people, whether I was the guest or not, but being able to, highlight the things and point on the things that you're talking about and really wanting to learn from your guests, I think is special. And your audience and your viewership will, I think, appreciate that as well. Just getting that information is it's not surface level, right? It's not something I could Google. It's not something I could find on his LinkedIn or his Twitter bio. It's something that I could only get if I was having a conversation with me or having a phone call with me or being able to, be in the same room as me. So I think you have something good going, bro. That's why I was excited to get on this.
I really appreciate that.
I had to come out here.
That means a lot. It means a lot. As someone who their whole life has kind of, battled that self-doubt and anxiety thing. There's days where I'm super confident about this, but there's other days where I'm like, man, who am I to go, do something like this? But so thank you for that. It means a lot. I think someone like you is the perfect person to be on. And we've had a lot of amazing guests, but the reality is when someone hears that someone had the opportunity to play in the NFL, I think we naturally assume, well, they didn't have a lot of adversity. They got to this elite level of their business and they're doing fine, whether they still play or not. Like, what do I have to learn from that person? I don't play football. I'm not going to get to that level. Like, I'm not, learning how to tackle is not going to be what benefits me. And while that person who assumes that's right, the reality of it is, there's learning opportunities within 100%. Failure, and we even, I think, are a little bit too careful with ourselves in labeling things failure because it's a harsh word, it's a negative word. So instead of identifying something as failure, we brush it under the rug, we avoid it, and we just kind of try to move on. But for me, like I've attached so much purpose to the term failure at this point in my life that I'm like looking for opportunities to call something failure. Like I'm really reaching sometimes because I know as soon as I put that label on it, I go, great, there's opportunity there. Now I can actually analyze it and stuff. And my wife sometimes will even be like, why do you have to call that failure? Like this was okay. And I'm like, but it wasn't perfect. So it's failure. Like there's something for here. But no, like I said, I think we're on to something and I appreciate your support in it, man. I'm excited to keep moving through it. Well, I do have another question for you actually, and it's completely irrelevant, I think, to everything else we've talked about, but I want to know, it's always intrigued me. What is there significance to the space theme that you and your brother have with your Instagram names? And for those of you that don't know, Brandon is Pluto on Instagram. His brother Bradley is astronaut.
Yep.
What's that?
That's a great question. And I think a
And
lot of
also,
people always.
is it a rock? Is it a
It's
rocket on his
yeah,
back?
rocket,
Okay,
yeah,
is it a rocket?
it's Rocket Man.
That's
Yeah.
what I thought. Okay, I gotta hear this. I gotta know.
Yeah. So it really just started with um me in college, right? Being able to associate myself. I think somebody said it, and it was like, how's the sky the limit when there's footprints on the moon?
Yeah.
And so that kind of got the whole, space theme in there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I was thinking, always going to the next level. Taking off is a word I could use, right? Take off to that next level, and kind of that's a motivating word that I would use for myself, and being able to put us as just characters, right? So Pluto and astronaut.
Yeah.
And so, just representing that space theme of going beyond the sky, going beyond and above, and really just conquering their goals, and shooting for the stars, literally. Like, I think one of the biggest things our dad taught us was, never half-ass anything, right? So you could do something, somebody asked you to do X, Y, and Z, you could do it, right? And the job could be done, they could be satisfied. But I always looked at doing that X, Y, and Z as doing it as the best I can. And if I can't, then I'm not going to do it. Or I'm find a way to do it the best I can, as long as I'm able, right? And so that's kind of the theme and the mantra with this space theme is just shooting for the stars, man, and really going above and beyond with goals, with ambitions. People thought I was crazy a year ago, literally, man. At this time last year, I was in New York talking to people who were private equity guys or venture capital guys. And they said, hey, like, what do you want to do? And I said, I want to start my own private equity firm. I want to raise $500 million. This is what's going in their head. This dude wants to raise $500 million from investors, and he has no finance degree, has no background in it. Like, this dude's crazy. But then, fast forward to September, I just raised $250,000 to invest in one company, right? So that's me shooting for goals like beyond the sky. Because it sounds crazy as shit, like me telling you I'm gonna do X, Y, and Z, but I know myself, I'm confident in myself that I can put that at least pen to paper and do it the best I can, right? And get to the point where I'm at today. And not saying I'm not gonna fail or have, roadblocks. And I'm not saying that getting to that point was easy, but at least once you put your mind to something, at least for us, is being able to conquer it and really have shit you're saying that sounds crazy to other people.
Yeah.
They say, my dreams are so uncomfortable to talk about, right? They're so crazy, it makes other people uncomfortable. I think that's a quote, So that's kind of how we're looking at it, man. Is if I'm saying shit that you're like, oh yeah, you could definitely do that, then I probably shouldn't be doing that.
Then I need to level it up, right?
Dude, like, damn,
so glad
you're that
I asked
confident
that.
I could do that shit.
I'm so glad I asked that.
Yeah.
I knew there was something behind it. I was like, that's not just like a nickname. Like there's something there. But hold on, I want to highlight two things.
And so let me just say the Pluto thing real quick. Pluto was a planet. Now they call it a dwarf planet, right?
Right.
So it's kind of that chip on the shoulder, underrated, right? So it's kind of left out. That's why Pluto attached to me, because based off of this podcast, you heard my whole life story. I was the last minute offer to Wake Forest. I was the undrafted guy that still made it to the NFL. So just having that chip on my shoulder as, hey, how am I not a planet? I'm a dwarf planet now, and having that kind of stigma to it.
That's awesome. I love that. There's two things I have to highlight. Have to highlight. One, I'm this way as well. You always aim higher than what is expected, whether that's an expectation from others or one you place on yourself. Because even if you do fall short, you're still going to be landing above the expectation, right? Mm-hmm. That's you in terms of going out trying to achieve this huge goal of bringing in millions of dollars in terms of venture capitalist funds. Everyone should have that ability to aim higher than what is expected. It doesn't matter what it is. Mm-hmm. We're all pretty, and I mean this nicely, we're all pretty unintelligent in terms of the majority of information, but all of us have an area that we're very, very good at. Yeah. We're very passionate about. We love to further that education in that area. And we all have the ability to learn something from each other as well. And I think we have a hard time as people wanting to know everything because we don't like being in a room or a group where we don't know what's being spoken about. And that's okay. People need to get over that. But where I'm going with this is focus on those things really, really well. And that's what you've done your whole life. And I'm a hard worker and I can find a way to get it done. And that's created an identity within you. You've literally attached meaning to being overlooked. You've attached meaning to adversity. And I love that, man. And you have to experience adversity. You have to live in the stress in order to do that. And that just fits you so well. I'm so glad I asked that question, man.
To touch on that, aiming higher, right? So I mentioned raising $500 million fund, right?
Yeah.
But even if I fall short of that, I'm raising if I raise $20 million
Yeah.
and I set out to raise 500 million, I'm still, raising $20 million to put into a firm, put
Mhm.
into companies. And that's still an exceptional job. If I had a $20 million goal and hit it, I mean, I would have thought that was a success. So raising 500 million and getting only 15
Yep.
is still a success, right? And then two, like you gotta aim high, right? Because I'm telling you, even me, like I was uncomfortable sometimes telling people I wanted to start a private equity firm. When I was at Madison Square Garden, somebody invited me out, just networking opportunity, but it was during a fight. And I was with a bunch of private equity guys, literally Harlem Capital and all these other people. And I honestly was almost not going to say what I wanted to do, right? Because I didn't want to be uncomfortable in that situation, because it would have made some people laugh at me, some people talk under their breath, or some people kind of roll their eyes. But being able to say like I want to do X, Y, and Z, and it sounds crazy as shit, but then being able to kind of do it in a instance where I'm not raising 500 million, I'm raising 250,000, but now I'm trying to raise 5 million in January, and then
Right.
it levels itself up. But no, that's a great point you just said, because I mean it's crazy, man. It's sometimes I was literally thinking about, damn, do I really want to say I want to start a private equity fund? I kind of am embarrassed to say it right now.
Where did that statement come from?
What?
I want to start a private equity fund.
So did a Harvard Business School program called Crossover into Business 2019. My mentor, they paired us with two HBS students, second year HBS students as our mentors. And they kind of brought us throughout the program, sent us case studies on interests we had. So my interest at first was franchising, but both of my mentors were private equity people. And I realized there's an intersection between franchising and private equity where they both have that kind of operational sense where you get your hands dirty, you build the business, and the business does as well as your operational skills and your work ethic make it, but it's just a larger scale, right? And it's more risk in private equity, but it's also more reward.
Yeah.
And so once I got around these guys and they put that energy on me, and I was, reading up on stuff and learning, I said, well, I want to do this now instead of franchising. And so being able to set that goal out for myself, and talking about not knowing everything in the room, right? I surrounded myself with 4 of the smartest people I know from Wake Forest that are my advisors at Captain Firm. And so a lot of people can say, well, I want to be the smartest guy in the room. I started this. Like, I don't want people, planning to, take all my shares and kick me out of the company in 5 years. But I literally, 4 of the smartest people I know, a lawyer, an attorney, an M&A professional, and a private equity associate are my 4 advisors, and they know more than me. But that's the thing. I know one thing that I'm good at, and I'm a harp on that, and I'm gonna make that the best one thing I'm good at, right? And they have 4 different things that they're good at. And if we all use our energies or our mindsets to make ourselves good at those 5 things in a total, that one big Captain Partners is going to blow everything out the realm, and
Right.
as far as operational sense and execution. So that's how I think of it.
I have another question now.
Mm-hmm.
How long, and this, you may not know this exactly, but how long was it before between the idea being planted in your mind that you wanted to do this and you openly verbalized it out loud, whether it be to yourself or to someone else? Was it a little while, or did you jump right in?
I think I solidified that I wanted to do this maybe May of 2019, and publicly told people that November. So
Okay.
6 months.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh.
But it was one of those things where I had to make sure, because you could set high goals, but you also got to make sure they're realistic, right?
Right.
So I'm not going to say I'm about to build a fucking spaceship to compete with SpaceX, right? Because that's a high ass goal, but it's not realistic. And so I had to make sure before I started talking about this that I crossed all the T's and dotted all the I's. That if I could put myself in this position, I would have the resources, or be able to make the resources to make this a reality. So that took about 6 months to come to that realization. That was through studying and really learning the ins and outs of private equity, knowing who's in my network, building my network to be able to utilize and take advantage and use these people to help myself. So that was kind of the reason that 6 months time frame was making sure that it was realistic.
Sure. So there was a lot of time being
Yeah.
spent on the
Right.
thought process. I asked that question just because I think people do oftentimes come across an idea or a thought that does excite them, or like creates this this cohesive cognitive thought process about the idea. But because we get so concerned about other people think, we don't want to be called crazy. We don't want people to say, "What are you doing?" That's nothing compared to what you're doing now. We hold that statement inside, even if it's not around other people. I think people even get a little bit uncomfortable saying something to themselves, even when they're alone.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's step one. You have to verbalize it, and you have to
Mhm.
almost attach your identity to the
Mhm.
statement as well.
Yeah.
Because, or as we talked about earlier, the way we talk to ourselves, the things we do say out loud over time do reaffirm belief. They
Right. For
reaffirm
sure.
discipline. They reaffirm confidence, and that's what leads us to take those steps, like you
Mhm.
did, is being able to just start with a verbalization,
Yeah.
bring it into existence literally through words.
Literally, that's how it
Yeah,
started, telling people in my inner circle and really getting the habit of actually speaking that out loud and affirming that and realizing that once I said this, not only was it, having positive affirmation out there, but it also put pressure on myself to get the ball rolling to follow up on the stuff I'm telling everybody,
yeah,
right? So then it kind of was a motivational thing as well.
yeah.
Kind of, work like that, not
Dude,
not even
see,
trying.
I love that because again, as we talked about earlier, emotions are stressors. They're
Right.
excuse me, emotions are motivators.
Mhm.
And now that you verbalized it, there's a little bit of stress
Yeah.
there. That's your brain going, well, hey, dude, you verbalized it. You told
Yeah.
people you want to do this. Like,
Yeah,
you got to
exactly.
get on your horse.
Right.
You got to start going. And now that stress, that
Right.
discomfort is
Right.
motivating you to go out and get these steps accomplished so you can achieve this.
Exactly.
And it's a good stress.
It's a good stress.
It's a
Yeah.
good
Yeah.
stress. It's a hell of a lot better than the
Yeah.
stress you experience 20 years from now because you never did it.
Exactly.
Hell of a lot better.
Exactly.
I'd much rather live in that stress.
Exactly. Because those
Oh.
same people are going to be asking, like, how's it going, in 2 months? And you got to
Yep.
have an answer.
Mhm.
And if that answer is, oh, I never started or never even tried it, then you look like, you just look like you're just talking, right? You just look
Mhm.
like I can't even take what you're saying with a grain of salt. But if it's, hey, it's not going well, but at least I, tried my best. I
Yeah.
just couldn't get X, Y, and Z to connect. It's more credibility from your standpoint and it leads to more opportunities from them as well, right? Or how about you try this? I know X, Y, and Z. I think he might help you. And
Mhm.
then, so it brings on a whole bunch of
Well,
other things.
and there's the
man.
benefits of
Yes,
verbalizing
exactly,
failure because now
exactly.
you told why something didn't work
Yeah.
and somebody talking to you goes, oh,
Verbalizing
dude,
failure is
I
huge,
have
bro.
the resource that
Yes,
you were missing.
right.
Like, let's try this again.
Yes, and that
You
goes to
know?
the vulnerability I was talking about when I tore my ACL. Verbalizing, because at that time it's a failure, right? I'm not playing. I'm not physically able to perform what I set out to do. I got to verbalize that by saying, "Hey, like I would love to job shadow you." Oh, isn't the season in 2 months? Yeah, but I'm not playing this year. Verbalizing
Right.
that. That's hard to do. You could just hide behind it and say, "Oh, let's do it in the off season," and sit on your ass for 7 months just because you didn't want to say I
Right.
was doing this during the season. But it's just verbalizing that. So it's
Yeah.
huge.
I love that. There's something in there like verbalization creates
Yeah.
opportunity
Yeah,
or
for sure.
vulnerabilities create opportunities. There's something
Yes.
there.
Yeah, it
Oh.
definitely is.
Dude, this was so amazing.
Yeah.
I don't want it to end. We got to do a round two sometime for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
One thing that's most important to me though is I do want to make sure we highlight you and the Chubb Foundation on social because I know some people
Yep.
loved hearing about that and want to
Yep.
know what they can do to help. So your personal social, do you mind if I share that with them?
Yeah. So at Chubb is my
perfect.
personal social and on Instagram, and then at Chubb Foundation on Instagram is the Chubb Foundation.
Absolutely. And
Instagram.
and I do want to make sure we put your podcast out there as well. I want to do what I
Oh
can to
yeah.
help you guys grow.
So at the HLP. So it's the Highlight Podcast, but at THEHLP.
And
is
what
the Instagram.
platforms can they find you on?
So you can find me on any platform. Just search that, the Highlight Podcast with Brandon Chubb, and you'll find me on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and I think also iHeartMedia. So
Hell
iHeartRadio. Yep.
Awesome, man.
So
Dude, thank you so much for being out here. I know it was a little bit of a trek to get here, but it meant the world to me and to honestly our audience. I know this is going to resonate with a lot of people.
Like I said, what your podcast is about. You asking me to be a guest on it was an honor as well. So excited to finally do it. It was fun, man.
Hell yeah, man.
I knew I had some good information for you.
We're going to do some more stuff together. I'm going to tell you that right now.
Let's
for
go.
sure.
I love
All
it.
right, brother. Well, thank you guys. Appreciate you guys being here. Remember, no matter how hard you fail forward. Talk to you guys soon.